Hello friends and welcome to my April wrap-up. I read 18 books in April. I had probably the best reading month of 2024 so far. I had like 2 5-stars. I just had like a really good reading month in April, and I'm gonna tell you about the books I read, give you all like a little bit of my thoughts and feelings and whatever, my review, I guess. The first book I read in April was Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. This was recommended to me like so many times. So many people in my comment section. One of my patrons was telling me to read it. Like, I was getting recommended this book a ton, and this is a dark thriller, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it because I can't really give a plot synopsis. We're following the main character, Sally. I feel like anything I tell you about this book is just too much and it goes into spoiler territory, but it's a very interesting thriller. I can understand why so many people love it, and I recommend going in blind. That's what I did. That's what a lot of people recommended to me to do, was go in blind, and I 100% agree. I think you get a better reading experience when you go in blind. I really enjoyed this one. It was a thriller that dealt with a lot of things that I personally enjoy and I think are interesting and I enjoy in thrillers. So it was a very quick read for me. I'm giving this 4.5 stars. It would be a 5-star, except I really didn't like the ending, and I'm a very big ending person. For the most part, I loved the rest of the book. There were some things that I didn't love concerning a certain character. I can't go into much about it, but there were some things that I didn't love about this book. That's just me being really nitpicky. Those are just the things that I would have liked to see done differently, but overall I had a great time reading it, and I understand why everyone was telling me to read it, and I think a lot of people are going to love this one, so I definitely get the hype. I just had like a little bit of things that didn't suit me personally. I read Spy Family Volume 7. I gave this one 3.5 stars. For the most part, I give manga a rating by the series, not individually, because it just makes it harder for me to gather my feelings about a series. But while I'm reading a series as it's coming out, or I'm reading it at a very like slow rate, I will tend to rate manga volumes individually and then agree to an overall rating after I finish the series. This one wasn't my favorite. It felt like a lot of filler to me, and I was just kind of bored. It could have been that I wasn't in the mood for manga at the time, so this was the only manga that I picked up during the month of April. I wasn't really that interested, I guess, but it was easy, quick. I really love this series. I think it's fun. I think it's easy to read, and I am enjoying it, so obviously I will be continuing it. The book club read for my Patreon in April was Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a book that I have seen so many people talking about recently. So many people have absolutely loved this book, and I wanted to know what everyone was talking about. I felt very left out, and I wanted to know what the hype was about. This story, it's a very short, it's a very quick read. It's about 2 women that meet at a farmer's market, and they strike up this like very intense relationship very quickly, and the relationship, you know, it becomes kind of obsessive, I guess. And that's pretty much all I'll say, because the less you know, the better. It's a novella. You don't want to know too much. I enjoyed this. It was very weird, very interesting. I have seen a lot of people say this was super obvious and they guessed everything. I personally did not, because I had a totally different idea for what the book was doing while I was reading it. So my mind was wandering down one path the whole time I was reading this book, but really it was a completely other path. I didn't guess anything. I thought the book was doing something totally different, so I was surprised by the ending. For the most part, I think there were some predictable points to the story, but I would say for the most part the ending did kind of catch me by surprise. I did really like the ending. The ending did make me laugh, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because thinking about what the ending is. I don't know if I should have laughed, but I did. Overall, I did enjoy this. I see why everyone's really loving it. I would probably give it a 4 or a 4.5. I'm not really sure. It's not a 5-star, but it does feel around the 4.5 area. This next one was an anticipated release of mine, and it is Midnight on Beacon Street by Emily Ruth Verona. This is like a nostalgic 90s babysitter horror story. It takes place in October during the 90s. It's a Friday night, and our main character, she is babysitting. She's watching these 2 kids, and the book starts out with the first chapter happening at midnight, and something bad happens at midnight. You don't know what it is, but something terrible has happened. And so after that, you're kind of working your way towards midnight, but it is a very interesting timeline because sometimes it's like 6 hours till midnight, then it's 3 hours till midnight, then it's, 8 hours till midnight. It goes back and forth. It's not a straight line. I think a lot of people get very irritated by the timeline because it does hop around a lot. I think a lot of people are also irritated with this book because it is slightly mismarketed, in my opinion. It isn't the kind of horror that I think people are expecting when they go into it. It feels much more subdued. I know Gabby from Gabby Reads has said that this is more of like a cozy horror to her. I do agree. I feel like it is more on the cozy side. I personally really liked this book. I think it helped hearing everyone's opinions going into it though, so I knew not to expect something like When a Stranger Calls, which is kind of what this book is giving from the synopsis and the vibes. I think it wants you to expect When a Stranger Calls or like Halloween. There's so much media where like a babysitter encounters these horrific things and has to protect the children, so I think that's where people's minds are going when they pick this book up, but it's not really like that. It feels more about the characters. It feels more about just like the experience of following the timeline up until midnight, but I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was too boring. I didn't think it was like terrible, but I had heard everyone's point of view going into this one, so I kind of had lowered my expectations on what to expect, but I did like this. I'm giving it 4 stars. I thought it was enjoyable for what it was, and it kind of hit that horror loving part of my heart because it does have a lot of horror references. The main character loves horror movies, so it's brought up a lot, and for me it was just like it was a cozy read. I agree, it was cozy for me. So I'm in the minority with this one. I think you should adjust your expectations going into this one because it's not going to be what you expect it to be. I then picked up Foe by Ian Reid. I did a reading vlog for my patrons where I read the book and then I watched the movie in one video and kind of gave my thoughts on both and what I thought they did right and all that kind of stuff. So it was really fun. I can't give you too much of a plot synopsis, but the bare bones of it is this is about this couple who lives basically in the middle of nowhere. There's no one for miles, and they get a knock on their door and there's this visitor there. That's basically what the book is about. It reads a lot like a Black Mirror episode. I know so many people have said that. It really does. I think that if you enjoy Black Mirror, the TV show, you will probably really enjoy this because it's just along the same lines. A lot of people talk about the twist in this one. I didn't find it that twisty. I think it's kind of obvious what's going on at a certain point. You kind of catch on to things that Ian Reid is doing in the story. So for me, I was expecting like a bigger twist than what I was given, and I think that's just because so many people hype this book up, so I was just expecting like a mind-boggling, mind-bending, huge twist, and for me, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, no, this, I mean, it's good, I like it, I'm enjoying it, but I thought there was gonna be like more to it. I did enjoy this one. I don't like it more than I'm thinking of ending things. I think I'm giving it a 4-star. Because it was enjoyable and I like what Ian Reid did. I think I just had like super high expectations. It was too predictable for me. I then picked up Watching You by Lisa Jewell. This was on my 24 books for 2024. I love Lisa Jewell. She is one of my favorite thriller authors. I just enjoy every book that she writes, and this one is no exception. I had a great time while reading it. But basically it's about this neighborhood that's very picturesque, it's very perfect, you know, very ideal, and someone gets murdered, and then you kind of have to figure out who has been murdered, who did it while you're reading along, and, you know, figure out who's hiding what. So I actually really liked this because I was intrigued from the moment it happened. I liked where the story ended up going. I did find it to be slightly predictable. I do find that's the case with some Lisa Jewell books though. Some of them are predictable and I do end up guessing the twist before they happen. This one kept me on my toes for a little bit. I will say that I caught on after like a brief period of time where I was like, huh, what's happening? So I did figure it out kind of before it happened, but I do think this one was really enjoyable and it was entertaining. It kept me hooked. I was, you know, excited to read it. I was intrigued. I had a good time, so I am giving it 4 stars. The next 4 books I did a reading vlog on. I had my spinner wheel pick which horror books I read, and these were the 4 that I read in that vlog, so I'll have it linked down below if you want to hear more detailed thoughts, because I'm not going to go super into detail on these. The first one is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. This was also a anticipated release of mine that I was super excited to get. I love the cover. In this book we are following the main character Anna. She's going on a family trip to Italy and she does not really fit in with her family. She's a black sheep. They always make her the butt of the joke. She can never really do anything, you know, right. It's just like a whole thing. And when they arrive at this villa that they're staying at in Italy, there is a potential haunting occurring. I liked the idea of this, but it was a very, very frustrating read for me. I hated the family. I was begging the main character to leave because her family was so terrible to her, and it was actually giving me like a visceral reaction because I just wanted to get out of the situation for her. It was just like a nightmare to read. I just don't like toxic families like this, and I do like toxic family relationships in books, but I think this one was so overwhelming because she was getting ganged up on by her entire family the whole time, and it was just really frustrating to read when you just wanted to scream at her to leave, like skedaddle, get out of there. I think the haunting element, because there is that potential haunting that, you know, is it happening? Is it not happening? I wanted more from that. I just thought that that was more of a side part of the book, and it's really more about this like toxic family. So I just had like a hard time reading this one. I wanted to love it more than I did. I did like the ending. I really enjoyed Anna as a main character, but I think overall it just fell a little flat for me, so I am giving it 3.5 stars. Talking about books that fell flat for me, The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keist. This is a very interesting haunting story. It's about this neighborhood and the people inside of it that just completely vanished, and these 3 girls were the only ones that lived there but didn't end up vanishing, and the story really centers around them and their story and them going back to the neighborhood to figure out what's going on. I just didn't care about this book. It felt like the haunting wasn't really that important to the story. It felt like it could be replaced with like any other kind of horror element and the story would have been the exact same, because it was more about the women and their relationships and like each other and their lives and them growing up in the neighborhood. That was frustrating to me because it just wasn't that engaging. I was kind of just ready for it to be over the entire time. I didn't really love any of the characters. Nothing really, you know, was grabbing me to read it, to want to read it. It is very short, which is probably why I finished it. Otherwise I would have DNF'd it because it just wasn't something that I personally found interesting. and I just didn't vibe with it. But overall, I am giving this a 3-star. I am sad because this was sent to me by the publisher, but it just didn't really work for me. Speaking of books that were sent to me that didn't work for me, My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Van Veen. This actually came out this month, May 14th, and this was sent to me from Poisoned Pen Press. This is like a gothic romance with like a little bit of horror. I don't really consider it that much horror. It's more like a gothic romance. This is about the main character, Ruse, who has a spirit companion. Her mom holds these seances, and Ruse and her spirit companion help make them more authentic and real. And Ruse ends up meeting this woman named Agnes, and Agnes kind of sweeps her away and takes her to her mansion. Yeah, it was just more of like a really slow romance. It was more about like the relationships between Ruse and her spirit companion, Ruse and Agnes, and like just the other characters that are involved in this story. It's more about that than it is anything like super horror forward. I wouldn't expect something super horror going into this book. It's more of a gothic romance. I did like the addition of the spirit companions. I thought that was really cool and unique and different, and I liked the descriptions of them. I thought they were really like grotesque and interesting, but otherwise I was just kind of bored. I wanted more from the story. I felt it was really predictable. I wanted it to be more of like a twist or like surprising or something, but I don't know. The ending, I was just kind of like, yeah, that's what I expected it to be, so I'm going to give this one 3 stars also. And lastly in that vlog, I read Chlorine by Jade Song. This is also on my 24 books for 2024, and I did not expect to like this because it is like a coming of age literary horror, and literary is just something that sometimes works for me, sometimes it doesn't. The writing of this one is definitely very literary. It's very like flowery at times. I was a little worried that it was gonna go over my head, but I think I got used to it, and it did become easier as the story went on. I can't really explain this one too much either because it's just hard to explain this book. But in this book we are following Ren, who is a swimmer in high school, and she longs to be a mermaid, and that's what we're doing. We're following her on this journey of wanting to become a mermaid, and that's pretty much it. It's a very strange book. I feel like the horror aspect of it doesn't really come in until the end. You're probably going to be wondering, how is this considered horror, until like one part, and then you're like, there it is, because it is pretty short, so I feel like you're kind of like, what's happening? It's a very bizarre book. I feel like the ending is also very ambiguous, so depending on how you feel, it could probably go different ways for everybody. I think you could probably have your own interpretation to this book, but I did like a lot of the discussion and commentary on race and being a young woman and growing up and just dealing with life as a woman. There was some really great stuff in this book and a lot of great commentary, but it is very bizarre. It did remind me of pretending to be a mermaid when I was younger with my friends in a pool, and how I was like, yep, I'm a mermaid. It also kind of reminded me of watching the show H2O. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So I feel like if you also pretended to be a mermaid in a swimming pool and watched H2O, this is kind of like the horror version for people like that. 4 stars. It was weird, but good. Then I read another really, really hyped thriller, and that is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. This was sent to me by the publisher. Thank you, Atria. And I've heard so many good things about this one. This is about these 2 women that meet, and they share their life stories with each other, and they kind of realize they have a lot in common, and they come up with this plan that if I kill for you, you can kill for me. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was very twisty. Personally, I know some people might not feel that way. I think depending on what kind of media you've consumed, this could be very predictable. For me, I had never read anything like this one or seen any movie like this, so I didn't have anything to like expect. I wasn't predicting things. I wasn't forming theories. I had no idea what was going on. And I really liked that because it ended up surprising me at every turn, and I think it did a really good job of doing the twists that it was attempting to do. I think it was very successful. I'm giving this 4.5 stars. I would give this 5. However, the same with Sally Diamond, I did not like the ending of this one. I was a little disappointed. I was expecting something else. I was expecting something a little bit different, and so I was a little dissatisfied with the ending of this one. It wasn't super bad, it wasn't anything horrible, I just wasn't, that's not where my mind was, so I was a little like, oh, okay. Could have been a 5, but I didn't absolutely love the ending. But I do think it's a really good thriller, and I think it'll be great for people getting out of like reading slumps, because there's so much happening and there's so much for your brain to like jump to and focus on that it'll keep you super interested and like focused. So I would recommend this for a reading slump because I think it would be a great one to get you out of it. I then picked up a romance at the end of April and read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I've heard great things about this author. I know that so many people enjoy her romances, so I picked this one up from Book of the Month, but I got it because it was a Book of the Year, so it was for free. In this book, we're following two doctors, Brianna and Jacob, and Brianna is going through a divorce. Her brother needs a kidney donor. She's having a hard time, and when Jacob shows up at the hospital to start working there, they have like not a really great first meeting. Brianna actually just decides she doesn't like Jacob. Jacob ends up writing Brianna a letter letting her know like what kind of actually happened, and they end up striking up a friendship. This was so good until the end, okay? I was actually like giggling while reading this book. I loved it. I did not expect to enjoy it as much. I thought people were lying about Abby Jimenez. I was like, you guys are hyping her up too much. I'm not gonna like this book at all. But I was super invested and super into it, and I knew that it was gonna be maybe like a new favorite. I was hoping for a 5-star at the end of this book. However, at the very end of this book is thrown in my least favorite trope of all time, like the one trope that I absolutely hate in a romance. In any book, honestly, I don't like this topic, but this trope specifically in romance is the worst thing ever, and it ruined the book for me. It straight up ruined the book for me. The reading experience, I was so upset because I loved it, and that it just turned me off completely. And it was at the very end too, like right at the very end. Like I think I had maybe like 60 pages, 70 pages left or something. I was so mad. It also has my favorite trope of all time, which is fake dating. So I was like, how could you do me so dirty and put my favorite trope and my least favorite trope in this book? That's so mean. So I actually don't know how to rate this book because it was a 5-star until the ending, and the ending ruined it so much for me. So I feel like at this point it's basically a 3.5, which is devastating because it was a 5. But because it included the thing that I hate the most, I have to give it like a 3.5. I then read another thriller called That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. And I've heard great things about this thriller, and I was really excited about it. It's YA. It's about this girl who's found bruised and dirty and bloody on the side of the road. This police officer picks her up, and she has no memory of who she is, what she was doing, what happened to her. She doesn't know her name, nothing. This man comes in looking for his daughter, and he's, showing these pictures. He's like, she's 17, her name is Mary, and when he sees this mystery girl, he's like, that is my daughter, that's Mary. He has all this documentation, birth certificate, school ID, photos, etc. It's wild. You also get this POV of this guy named Drew whose girlfriend has been missing for a few months, and he is the main suspect. Everyone thinks he has killed her or done something to her, and so he is searching for his missing girlfriend Lola. This was super fast, super quick, super easy to read. I love thrillers that are this like consuming and engaging from the get-go. I loved the idea of it. I loved the plot. I loved this kind of direction we were taking. I think my biggest pet peeve, but also I kind of figured from the beginning what what was what. It's just very obvious. It's not gonna do anything super surprising. I think if you've read a lot of thrillers, you're gonna know where this book is going, what's happening, what it's doing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I just love a twist. I love a plot twist. I love being caught off guard. So I was waiting for that and I just didn't get it. But for a YA thriller, I thought it was a lot of fun and very well done, and you know, it was a quick, easy read. Another book that I think would be perfect to get you out of a slump because it's so interesting right off the bat and so fast paced. If you're having trouble sitting down and focusing, this one would like suck you right in. So I am giving this 4 stars. Next up was an arc I had of Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda. This came out on April 9th, but this is about the main character Hazel, who inherits her childhood home. Her dad was the town detective and has just passed away. And this town is suffering from a drought, and the water levels are kind of lowering because of the drought, and basically some things are coming out of this lake in the town and some like secrets are being revealed. And because of this, Hazel thinks this is how she's going to find out what happened to her mother and why she disappeared. So at first I didn't really like this book. I think the first half was like really slow and it took a while for me to get into and invested in, and I was kind of like getting frustrated with some of the characters and some of like the reactions and like the discussions. I was like, this is frustrating. I don't care. But I really liked the second half, and I felt like the twist was actually pretty good. It wasn't super surprising, but some things did catch me off guard, which I did like. So I don't know how I feel about this one. I think it's a very standard thriller, but I also feel like it did some fun stuff and like I enjoyed some of it. So it's between like a 3.5, a 4. I feel like it's not 4-star worthy, honestly. I don't feel like it was like that mind-blowing or like that exciting or like I liked it that much, but I did really enjoy the end and like the second half a lot. So I feel like this is probably more of like a 3.5. I am interested in reading more Megan Miranda. I know her books are very hit or miss. I didn't hate this one, so I would be interested in reading more of her work. Then I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I know, it's a paranormal romance. It's basically fantasy, which is crazy for me because I barely ever read fantasy, but I wanted to give it a try. I love Ali Hazelwood. Plus, I was asked to co-host for my friend Aaliyah here on YouTube. Her channel name is The Library Dweller. She has a book club called the Big Bad Booty Bitches Book Club, and she asked me to co-host for the March book club, which was Bride, but we had the live show in April, so I read it like at the very beginning of April. So this is a paranormal romance between vampires and werewolves, and this is about the main character Misery. She is a vampire and she gets married to the alpha werewolf named Lo to help relations between the vampires and the werewolves. You know what? I actually enjoyed this a lot. I actually really did like the first half of this book. The romance was actually really good. The politics, I didn't really care about the politics, I'm going to be honest. Fantasy politics aren't something that I'm used to reading about, and even if this isn't like super fantasy, it was for me. So it was just kind of a lot of politics that I was like, I don't care. Can we just get to like the romance? Can we just get to those two? I just want to see what's happening. I loved the romance. Loved that. I thought it was a lot of fun. The only thing I didn't love was the nodding. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, if you've read this, you know what I mean. I just didn't need that in my smut. I didn't need to read that in the sex scenes. I thought it was weird and it kind of turned me off and it felt a little bizarre. I guess it was kind of realistic, but also like I just didn't need that. I just didn't need it like that. Like I didn't need that. I also thought the plot twist was obvious and predictable, and I was like, yeah, no duh, this is what's happening. So the ending, it fell a little flat for me, I'll be honest, because of the nodding and the plot twist. I was like, yeah, okay, that's not surprising. But I did like it more than I thought I was going to. So I'll probably give this a 3.5. Next up is Night Watching by Tracy Sierra. I read this for Kayla, or Books and Lala's Literally Dead book club, and I did enjoy this book. I know so many people have hyped it up. This is like a home invasion thriller about this woman who is up putting her son back to sleep. He like woke up, she was making sure he was back, tucked into bed, and when she leaves his room, she sees this figure in the hallway and she realizes there's somebody in her house. That's how the book starts, and it's just like a very intense beginning. Home invasion is something that is like one of my worst fears, and I feel like this book played on that a lot. The first half of this book was excellent. I was super invested. I loved it. Like, I loved it. My biggest criticisms of this book are that I think it's a little too long, because the second half kind of takes a turn that I just hated. I was like, I don't need this. It's drawing it out. Can we just, like, no, stop. And it also just does something that I hate and that frustrates me a lot in thrillers or books of any kind, honestly. So I was getting a little frustrated and a little tired of the second half. It also is kind of jarring when you're reading it, because it'll go from a chapter of like the home invasion, like the woman and her kids being in the middle of this like terrifying event, and then the next chapter will be like, let's reminisce about my relationship with my husband and my family, and it feels so jarring because there's like this terrifying thing happening, and then it's like, let's talk about the past, and I'm like, whoa, can we go back to that home invasion thing? There's like stuff happening there. It's kind of crazy. Let's go there. Overall, I really enjoyed the ending. I think the commentary was really great on, you know, being a woman and people believing women being labeled dramatic or over the top or emotional or too anxious. I just think it had a lot of good commentary, and the ending was satisfying enough for me that I can look past the criticisms that I did have. So overall, I am giving this 4 stars. I think it did a good job of what it was trying to do, and I think it's a great kind of like literary thriller. The last 2 books on this list were 5 stars, which I am so excited about. They were my favorite reads of the month. And first up is The Hollow Dead by Darcy Coates. This is the 4th book in the Gravekeeper series. I mean, I can't even really talk about it because this is a series. This is book number 4. I can't give things away, but I love this series. I love the characters. I love where we're going with it. I'm always excited to read another book, and I was just having the best time. It was the perfect remedy for my little reading slump that I was in, or like my 5-star slump, I guess, because I couldn't find a book I loved. So I picked up Darcy. Of course, she is my favorite author, so it worked perfectly for me. And I knew it was going to be a 5-star from the minute I picked it up. I just have the best time reading these books, and I am so excited to see what the rest of this story holds and like where we're going, because we just keep getting more and more information. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in book 5. I love it so much. So this was like an easy 5-star. I love the series anyways, so. And then a book that came out and kind of surprised me. I didn't expect to love this one, and that is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. I really didn't think I was gonna like this, especially when I started it. It is a murder mystery, which I love mysteries, and I've had such a great time reading them over the last year and experiencing them and like trying them out. I had high hopes that I was gonna like it, but I did not know how much I was going to like this book. In this story, we are following the main character, Ernie, and he is meeting up with his entire family because his brother is being released from prison. And the day before his brother arrives at this remote mountain resort, a man is found dead. And because Ernie knows about crime, he takes it upon himself and starts trying to solve the murder and figure out what really happened. This is not your average murder mystery. It is told in a very interesting way. The main character breaks the 4th wall a lot and is talking to you. I can see why some people will absolutely hate it, because it is jarring. It is a little bit jarring just like reading the story, and then all of a sudden like this paragraph is like talking directly to you and it's breaking the 4th wall, and it feels so out of nowhere. And as soon as I started reading it, I was like, oh, I hate this. I was like, oh, I hate this book. I hate it. I don't think I'm gonna make it. Like, there's no way this is gonna work for me. And I kept reading it, and I was like, you know what? This is amazing. The way the twists are done in this book are incredible, because the way the story is told through this writing, it's so easy to not pick up on hints or like figure out what's going on because the storytelling is so different that when a twist happens, it like slaps you in your face and you're like, wait, what? Wait, huh? Oh my God, what? And I loved that because it kept me guessing the entire time. I had so much fun while reading this book because I was like getting shocked left and right. I was like, wait, did I miss something? Wait, what's going on? And I love stuff like that. I loved it. And yes, the writing, I can definitely see why it won't be for some people, but it was so well done for me, and I had such a great time. It was an easy 5 stars, so enjoyable, such a good story overall, like just the plot itself, and then the storytelling and the writing was insanely good. I had the best time while reading it. I know there is a second book in this series, which I want to get my hands on because I want to read it so bad because I love this one so much. All right, that is it for my April wrap up. Those were all the books I read. Hopefully this wasn't too long. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on these books. If you've read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you agree, disagree, if you have any recommendations for me, I would love to hear them. Go ahead and let me know what your favorite read for April was, or your least favorite read, or both, because I am very nosy and like to know what you all are reading as well. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. If you did, give me a thumbs up. That way I know you enjoy my wrap ups. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I also have a Patreon link down in the description box. We can become friends, talk about books, horrifying books, thrilling books, romance books, manga, all that good fun stuff. And with that being said, I hope you are having a great day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!